I'm Whitey Willauer, and this is Front Up, and we've got our latest edition here, and we've got a great guest today, Ken Blackshaw. I think you're the Birdman of Nantucket, or one of the Birdmen of Nantucket.
I answer to both those, yes.
Yes, yes. Now, how come you've got involved with the avian species, of multiple avian species?
Well, when I was a lad here on Nantucket, my mother was a single parent, wondering what to do with me. And a friend of hers by the name of Edith Andrews.
Well, yes.
And this was, I hate to say it, more than 50 years ago.
And she's still around?
Yes, she is.
All right.
And Edith took me under her wing. All these birding terms will come to the forefront here. And she was just very supportive. I guess I had a good eye and a good ear, and she was then very supportive. You know, good spotting, she would say, but then again, you just become fascinated with birds. I think, you know, we talk about it a lot. Everybody has dreams, I think, that you can fly, you know, and it's pretty cool. Then you wake up and you can't, but you are. You know, then you watch the maneuvers that the birds around you do effortlessly without even thinking of it. You know, they'll be sitting on a feeder and then they'll drop straight down and at the last minute open a wing and land lightly. Yeah. You know, they're obviously a bird has no fear of falling. And you see it with young birds learning how to fly. The other day on PBS there was a show on eagles, and they were showing the eagles leaving the nest.
First flight?
Yeah, yeah. And initially they're jumping up in the air and coming back down again.
Oh, I see.
And then one day it's windy, and they jump up in the air and they come back down. The nest is over here, and they realize they have to keep on going. And that first flight, you can imagine what the exhilaration must be like on a first flight like that.
Do any of them not figure out how to do it and go kaplunk on the ground?
Have you ever flown a plane?
Yes.
So you know about landing?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the tough part. So the first landing, you see something like that we watched the eagle try to make that first landing, and he grabbed the branch and then just kind of kept on going, and upside down, fell down through the tree. Yeah, it's not an easy thing.
Yeah. So now you published a book on birds.
Yes, yes. The first one actually was Birds of Taiwan, New Guide to the Birds of Taiwan, an area that's not far from where you used to live.
Oh, I didn't know you did that.
Yeah, that was in 1976. The Air Force had sent me over there thinking I was doing personnel work, and but there were birds there as well. So I worked with the guy who wrote the original book, and we put out another book in English and in Chinese.
Did you capture all the birds in Taiwan?
We captured more of them than the previous book did.
Oh, so you improve each time.
It was still a pretty awful book, but it was better than the preceding one, yeah.
So you did all your damage over in Taiwan before you came here.
And interesting, when Bob Kennedy, Dr. Bob, arrived here and met me, he already knew me because he had having done the Birds of the Philippines. He had a copy.
Did.
Yeah, he had a copy.
I didn't know that about Bob.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's that Birds of the Philippines is a tome.
Really?
Yeah, and he spent a lot of time in the Philippines in some very unpleasant conditions collecting, avian data there.
Was he there during the war? No, he couldn't be. He's not old
Lord,
enough.
no. He's, but he was there probably through the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
He'll tell you that story, I'm sure.
Oh, well, I'm glad to know that because I was with him last night. He was doing, he's done research on the scallops in the harbor here, and then we had him when we were doing the avian study for the wind farm or the wind turbine out at the dump. He was providing how many thises and how many that's to the lady that's doing the study. I don't know if you've met her yet, but I'm sure you're going to get dragged into this situation.
So anyway, that's led to this book, which is a book that Edith Andrews and I have done. And this is like the 6th or 7th edition of this book.
Really?
The first one was in 1978.
Yeah.
Did it on a Royal typewriter. We've had various, we've always self-published it.
Let me see that here, yeah. Oh, okay. And this is do you have edition, 2007, 2008?
Well, that's, I should tell you that Mamie Beeman immediately looked at the cover. She said, "Why did you put 2007 on? It immediately becomes outdated."
Yes,
so
it's dated.
It's terrible. Why did we do that? We thought we were being timely. But anyway, so the next one that comes out will not have that, that on it. And we're probably going to need to, and there's changes that go on all the time. You can see that the bar graph is, I don't know which camera to point it at, is annotated. And these charts in the back are really the heart of the book. They're a little hard to read, I guess, for the beginner, but they show, the months of the year and how often you're going to see the thickness of the bar tells how common the bird is. And here, this tells you whether the bird nests or not, and when it would nest. These are habitat codes over here where you're likely to find it. And then the front part of the book is a seasonal kind of a guide that tells you, where to go on a particular season, to find a particular bird. And it's built to be a companion guide to something like Roger Torrey Peterson's Field Guide to the Eastern U.S., which actually helps you identify a bird, or Sibley's Guide to the Eastern U.S. as well.
I know when the lady was here the other day, we quickly had to, I guess they didn't have one at the Mariah Mitchell, and they had to go down to the bookstore to get your book, to give it to her so that she knew how to do her avian study.
Really?
Yes. So you don't have your books in all of the correct places.
I know, it's awful.
Yeah, yeah. So now tell me about is there one bird they have a bird watch that goes on around New Year's or something?
Oh, your Christmas bird count.
Christmas bird count.
Yes. Okay, that's a national program done by National Audubon Society. It runs from, I think, the 15th of December to the 5th of January. You have to have your Christmas bird count on a particular day during that period. And ours this year was on January 1, which made New Year's Eve a little bit hard to celebrate since we had to be up before the crack of dawn.
Who selected the date?
Oh, let's not go into that. Actually, we had another date. It's very hard to plan the date of a Christmas bird count because we have to do it with Tuckernuck in mind. Tuckernuck bird count was 2 days before.
Oh, it has to be coordinated?
Then it was 2 days after we had the vineyard bird count, and we have people that participate in our count that go to the vineyard.
Oh, so it's a logistics of people, not just of birds.
Sure, yeah. Oh. Yeah, and of course you have to send the birds over there so they can get counted, Whitey.
Yeah, double counting them. Yeah, it sounds like the census to me.
So the Christmas bird count has been done on Nantucket over 50 years. So we can look back 50 years and see the data, how populations have changed for given species. Some species, we have now that just didn't occur back then. Others that occurred back then we don't find anymore. So it's interesting data.
I was very amazed at what the avian people were looking at, and I sat through this thing, and how many pairs, and where are the pairs, and where do they live, and when are they here, and it was a very useful data that the people that are worried about our offshore and our land-based wind turbines.
Let me drag you back to Edith Andrews for a minute here. She just had what they call a retrap, not a retrap, but a finding of a bird that she banded 11 years ago.
That's
which
still
was
alive?
A male cardinal. It was a cat kill, unfortunately.
Oh.
And it was about a quarter mile from where the bird was originally banded 11 years before. Cardinals don't migrate. Cardinals live pretty much their whole lives within a quarter mile of where they hatch.
Really?
Yeah. So some birds, go away in the wintertime and come back in the summertime. Cardinals they're like true Nantucketers. They don't go anywhere.
Well, don't we find certain species used to migrate and they don't anymore, like the Canadian geese?
Canada geese, if I may.
Canada geese. Correct me anytime.
Mexican ducks, Canada geese. But this is not an easy business.
I see.
But anyway.
You're a purist.
There are Canada geese that migrate. There are Canada geese that don't, and only they know which ones they are.
Some do and some don't, and they change their...
I was in Churchill, Manitoba a few years ago in June, and there were these huge flocks of Canada geese going north at that time of the year.
Yeah.
They had already nested and raised their young for that season in Minnesota, And now they're going up to an area where there were no trees, further up into the Northwest Territory, for what they call, it's called a molt migration. Waterfowl go through a period where they're flightless. They actually molt all their flight feathers, so they're at great risk at that time. So this particular segment of the Canada goose population goes up there every year for this period where they're flightless.
Oh.
We saw them going over by the thousands, flying north in June, which is bizarre. I had no idea they did anything like that. So, you know, I've been doing this, you know, half a century, and every week I find out something that I didn't know before. Courtesy of the internet in a lot of cases.
Well, is there a central collection? In other words, when you discover something like that, how do you tell everybody?
Well, the internet's very helpful. There's something called Mass Bird, where if I put a note on Mass Bird, I hope everybody in Massachusetts reads it. There's another organization called Bird Chat, which is worldwide. So if I put anything on Bird Chat, 1,000 people read it almost immediately, and another 1,000 people read it the day afterwards in what they call a digest form. So that information is there very quickly. If a rare bird shows up, the internet just is lightning like information. There's a very rare bird over in Yarmouth Port right now called a Townsend solitaire, which is a kind of a thrush, and from the Rocky Mountain region. And I was going over to the Cape last week. My wife thought I was going shopping, and but I found out about this bird, and I got the guy's phone number who was keeping track of the bird, and so I was able to add that bird to my Massachusetts list.
So you got credit for it?
Well, it goes on your list. It's like a golf score, you know. You want to keep your own score.
Oh, I see. Yeah, but
and you really can't. Nobody cheats in golf, of course. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Now tell me about the old squaws.
Okay, old squaws, which used to be called old squaws, and some of us still love to call them old squaws, now are long-tailed ducks. The Nantucket Sound and the areas to the south of Nantucket are the winter home for about 1 million of them. That's what Bob Kennedy estimates they are. We've counted as many as 500,000. I say we. I counted, I think, 285,000 one time. You get rather tired of counting.
How do you count 285,000?
Well, you start out in ones, and then as the flocks get bigger, you count by hundreds, and then finally by thousands, and you do the best you can.
I say.
Have you ever gone and watched the long-tailed duck flight going over at Mattocket?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so you know what it's like. I mean, there's a...
Oh, I see. You can say, okay, it looks like about a 200 and that flock there. Do you call them flocks even?
They could be flocks.
What?
I'm pretty easy. But they keep on coming, you know. And so if they just go from left to right, it's fine. You can keep on counting them. But every now and then they take it in their heads to try and swirl around and see if they try to get you to count them twice is what they do.
Yeah.
They really.
Do they always stick? Does each flock stick together, or can you switch flocks?
Yeah, they'll do that too. Long-tailed ducks don't fly in a straight line like so many ducks do. Scoters, like sea ducks, typically are just going straight along. The long-tailed ducks tend to swirl.
Yeah, I saw that.
Just for the heck of it.
Really? And
sometimes they'll go over so high you can hardly see them. Other times they're right on the water. We had people go out last week. They were looking at the horizon for the ducks. And another car pulled up, and everybody piled out and started looking straight up, and they realized the ducks were actually going straight overhead.
Yeah. I understand when the vice president was here, the airport was worried about there might be a problem with the longtails.
Is that right?
Yeah. At least I'd heard a rumor from somebody out at the tower that they were trying to schedule the vice president around the ducks.
So you'd want to land around noon.
Is that
to miss the morning flight going the other way or the evening flight coming back. A lot of things you got to think about.
Well, how long does it take them to get?
Well, it's a lot of ducks. So they start several hours before sunset.
Yeah.
And normally it becomes too dark to see them, and the flight's still going.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these are the ones that probably got up late in the morning.
I see.
You know, it's the late shift. On the boat last week, it was interesting. 2/3 of the way across, there were a lot of long-tailed ducks just sitting in the water. I mean, it looked like a cluster of stars out there, hundreds or maybe thousands of them, that had apparently decided not to fly across the island to maybe 30, 40 miles south where they normally feed. So they had just decided to take the day off for whatever reason.
So it was a rainy day or something like that?
You know, it may have been something good on their little, what would a duck use for an internet device? I don't know. You can come up with that. By the way, there are long-tailed ducks that have been outfitted with radio transmitters and antennas, so they pretty much can answer the question where they're going each day, which has been a very tough thing to find out. They tried tracking them with planes. You know, Dick Veet, who is a professor at City University in New York, spent a lot of time trying to figure out where they were going. And now, most recently, they've been, and Vern Locks has been involved in the trapping effort. You know, literally chasing the birds down and netting them, and then
at night.
I heard that, yeah.
With lights.
I'm sure his mother wouldn't have liked it to know he was out doing something like that, but yeah.
They got what? They had 9 or 10 of them with radio.
And these radio transmitters are very expensive and valuable. So if something happens to one of these ducks, and you know that because suddenly the thing stops moving, it keeps transmitting, but it's coming from a fixed point at that point. Yeah, whether a falcon has gotten it or it just had a bad day and flew into a telephone pole or something. So then they go out and reclaim that transmitter.
Oh.
Yeah, because that's the valuable part. I mean, it's very sad that the duck has passed away, but now we have data, and now we need to get the transmitter back because it costs a lot of money.
Now I've got one more question, which may be politically difficult. What about crows?
Oh, crows have been in the news recently, haven't they?
Yes.
You know, this started out, a friend of mine, Peter Sawyer, who lives over near State Forest, called me up. They're shooting here. And I was not there to take the message. Meanwhile, he went out and visited with the guys who had guns, which can be a little unnerving. Yes, we're having a crow hunt. It's our annual crow hunt. And crows, there's an incredible, almost open season on crows. You can shoot crows almost all year. And so the thing of it is, I mentioned it to Edie Ray, and Edie got quite excited about it. The problem is shooting something that you're not going to wear or eat, you know, just basically shooting it because you can shoot it. And I'll draw another analogy. The sea ducks, of which old squaws are one, the three scoters and eider, also have a very wide open season almost on them. You can shoot a lot of sea ducks, and I don't think anybody eats them either.
Well, I gather they don't taste good.
No, they don't. And so unfortunately, it's a little sad that things can be shot just because it's fun to try and, you know, bring down something that's in flight. So, but you know, a lot of people don't like crows, and
well, farmers don't.
Yeah, and
my uncle used to shoot at the family farm. He'd put an owl in the middle of the field and wait for the first crow to come along. Of course, the crows one time they know exactly. You can't fool them for long.
But from the other side of the coin, crows still do quite well, even though they're shot at. They're very nervous birds.
Yeah,
as you might be. You know, if somebody was, you know, if you know somebody's likely to take a shot at you, you might not step out of the door without looking around first. Yeah. So that's kind of the way crows are. They're very nervous birds. They're very intelligent birds.
Do they migrate?
Some crows do. Some crows don't. That's
do
true.
they have one place they go at night?
They tend to have a communal roost.
Yeah.
You know how it is when you know, it's time to go to bed. You like to have a lot of people like you around you.
Yeah.
So that's the way crows are. They like to sleep with a whole bunch of other crows.
I see. Do you know what those roosts are?
I have an idea. Yeah, Edith Andrews always liked to watch the crows at, like, you know, half an hour before sunset, and you'd see, you know, where they're going, you know, and you get an idea where that roost might be. And finding a crow roost is rather an exciting thing.
Yeah.
A lot happening there. From a bird watching standpoint, there's a lot of things happening, you know, there, as they go to bed.
That's great. Well, anyway, I really appreciate having you here, Ken, and I'm learning more and more and more. I'm sure we're going to have you back in the near future.
Good. Okay.
To find out more about this Nantucket bird situation.
We can talk about radio sometime.
Well, that's the next one.
Okay. All right. Thanks, White.
Thank you very much, Ken, and thank you for being here. Appreciate it.